Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, this is it. We have reached the final Football Friday of 2018. But don't worry, we're not going anywhere. We'll be with you throughout the entire offseason here on Cards Cover 2. But at least for games, regular season games, NJ, this is it as the Cardinals on Sunday will take on the Seattle Seahawks. Second straight year, these two teams will close out the regular season.
And our predictions are for next year, it's either going to be the Rams or the 49ers.
To end the year?
Yeah.
Why not Seattle again?
I mean, you got to change it up at some point. I mean, you'll play Seattle or one of those other teams I mentioned in Week 16.
I'm predicting a lot of change in 2019. That's my prediction.
Well, I think you're stating the obvious.
Let's hope the change is for the better here as we take off on this Football Friday. Let you know what's ahead on the show here this afternoon as we broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. Coaches coach, players play. And Patrick Peterson believes it falls on the players this Sunday. The Cardinals have had a lot of success going into Seattle in recent years. They'll try to keep that streak intact on Sunday. Last Sunday may have been the last game for Larry Fitzgerald at State Farm Stadium. We look back through the eyes in a great piece by the Cardinals broadcasting department. And, of course, your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2, hashtag CardsCover2.
All right, so this is Larry Fitzgerald's final game in 2018.
I see what you did there. First things first. Clever, MJ, clever. The news of the day, and according to head coach Steve Wilks, only one player has been ruled out for Sunday, and that is tight end Ricky Seals-Jones. He missed all practice this week with a shoulder injury. Two other players questionable, Marcus Golden and Benson Mayowa. Golden dealing with an ankle. He did not play last week, and Mayowa with back and neck issues, and certainly that hurts the depth on the defensive line, but knock on whether those two should be able to go perhaps on Sunday.
Yeah, a little disappointing in Ricky Seals-Jones. Of course, he was my breakout player of the year, and that didn't come to fruition. You know, he needs reps just like anyone else. Now, he was an undrafted free agent. He played tight end in college at Texas A&M, and then they moved in, wide receiver at A&M, and then they moved him to tight end. So he's still raw, but he's got to get stronger. I want to see his hands get stronger because I think they're going to have to add a tight end. Curious to see what Jermaine Gresham's contract looks like moving forward. So there is a lot of needs on this football team, and you have to get protection, and you got to get more weapons for Josh Rosen.
And, of course, with Seals-Jones, a weapon as far as pass catching, it's just one, the inconsistency, and that's across the board for every wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, not named Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk, although Kirk got hurt, and, of course, his season ended early in 2018. A couple of other items to keep an eye on for Sunday. DJ Swearinger, will he be active? And then Pharoh Cooper. Coach Wilks left open the door that there might be a role for him on offense and mentioned the possibility of an extra role or an increased role on special teams as far as both returning kicks and punts.
He mentioned Pharoh Cooper had a really good week, not only in the return game, so we'll see who the kick returner is. I got to assume it's him because he has experience there. And then the punt returner was Christian Kirk. They tried TJ Logan, so curious to see how many reps he gets. And as for Swearinger, I asked him, he said he doesn't know what kind of role he would have, and maybe his role's on special teams, because if you're active and you're not a starter, then you have to play on teams, and he's willing to do that, obviously, because he wants to get a chance. I just said, hey, maybe the first or second possession, one of those big tackles, it's contagious, and
just pop someone.
Yeah, just pop
set the
someone.
tone.
I don't want to hurt anybody, but just pop someone, set the tone, and it's contagious. But honestly, considering the record, throw out the record here. I know it's been a rough season. They're looking forward to going up there and playing the Seahawks. They benefit from the crowd noise. Larry mentioned yesterday that it's one of the best places to play on the road because of the environment, the crowd, and obviously they're playing a quality football team in the Seattle Seahawks.
Another item, who plays left tackle. Of course, Corey Cunningham going on IR earlier this week. He had been the left tackle ever since DJ Humphries was placed on injured reserve. But certainly we think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, MJ, but I believe Joe Barksdale will get that call. But he's been playing on the right side. But when you look at who's left as far as the tackle with experience, he's head and shoulders above everyone. Zach Goldich and Will Holden are the other two names that Coach has mentioned throughout the week. But I would put the money, if you will, on Barksdale getting that call just because of experience. And the left side, you want to protect the blind side. And if you want to protect Josh Rosen, you better put someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, another guy that I wanted to see finish the season because he needs the reps. So whether he's going to be at the right side next year or he's going to be the swing tackle and Corey Cunningham, it makes total sense. Barksdale is going to be a free agent at the end of the year. How much money he's going to command? He made $22 million when he signed with the Chargers a couple years ago. So blindside for Rosen. And Will Holden does have some experience. He's a versatile guy, so I would assume he'll be on the right side. We'll just have to wait and see when it comes game time.
Regardless who it is, the Cardinals will start their 10th different offensive line combination. So that's 10 in 16 games.
Well, you had an interesting nugget earlier today. The Cardinals have made how many? 307?
307 roster moves based off of the late roster moves, which we'll get into here in a minute. A couple of players activated or elevated from the practice squad to the active roster, but 307 in 2018, the most that general manager Steve Keim has ever made as a GM.
Yeah, and, towards the end of the season, you want to start seeing young guys, and you make a lot of roster moves. I mean, I haven't been able to keep track of the practice squad. I did early in the season, but after that, and this is what you do. You got to find out what you have, and there's nothing like game reps. So, we'll obviously see what the roster is going to look like in the offseason, but the day after the season, so come Monday, even Tuesday, you'll see the Cardinals expand the 90-man roster in what they call a futures contract. Now, they got to make the team, but they're going to continue to look at other players and see if they can build some depth, if not find some frontline starters.
Yeah, Justin Pugh was in the locker room during media availability, and he had mentioned that he had never experienced anything like this with regard to the offensive line and the constant shuffling, new faces, and just not knowing guys. It's something that needs to be addressed. And a lot of it, some of it is just bad luck. You can prepare and plan for depth, but what you can't plan and prepare for is when guys get hurt, and especially the number of guys at offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. I mean, if we knew a guy was going to get hurt, if you told me he's going to get hurt in the second quarter, I wouldn't play him in the second quarter.
Or you wouldn't even sign the guy.
Well, no, I'm just saying in general, a player that's already on the roster, you just don't know when it's going to happen. And it's football, so it's a gladiator sport. It's a physical sport. So that's one thing. And that's why I always say the teams that are going to go deep into the postseason, there's a little bit of luck involved, and that means staying healthy.
Now, here are the roster moves that the team made late on Friday afternoon. Wide receiver Malachi Dupree and defensive tackle Pisoni Tassini have been added to the active roster from the practice squad. Cornerbacks Leonard Johnson and Dietrich Nichols have been released. So some depth at wide receiver. Perhaps J.J. Nelson is not active as he was last week. He was in street clothes, and then depth at defensive tackle because of the issues, the uncertainty with Marcus Golden and Benson Mayowa.
No disrespect, though. I think we know what they have in J.J. Nelson. Let's get these other guys, including Farrell Cooper. We're still waiting for Chad Williams to kind of scratch the surface. We know Larry's going to be out there. Obviously, you're still rolling with Trent Sherfield and Jalen Tolliver. But no disrespect. I mean, Nelson, I think we know what they have in him. I think they know what they have in him. So it'd be nice to see some other guys get an opportunity against the Seahawks.
Finally, before we get to breaking down Sunday's matchup, congratulations to Chandler Jones, named the team MVP for 2018, and Antoine Bethea, Corey Peters honored with the Good Guy Award. These awards presented today by the Arizona chapter of the Pro Football Writers Association.
Yeah, Lloyd Herberg was one of the original Cardinals beat writers back when they moved here in 1988. Unfortunately, he died of cancer. And then the Good Guy Award is in honor of Steve Schoenfeld, who covered the Dallas Cowboys for the Dallas Morning News. He also covered the Cardinals for the Arizona Republic. And then before he passed away, unfortunately, was hit by a hit and run. He was working for CBS Sports, and Shawnee was one of my mentors, so I'm glad we were able to recognize not only him but Lloyd Herberg.
And specifically with Bethea and Peters, we've talked about them a number of times. You hear from them a number of times because of their availability, but also because of the voice that they have amongst their players, their peers, named team captains for one, but their availability in the locker room. And this has not been an easy season. We know fans are upset, disappointed, but players are as well. And you want to hear what's going on, what went right, what went wrong. And 9 times out of 10 on the defensive side, you're hearing from either Bethea or Peters.
Yeah, they're kind of like the compass. I mean, if you want to find out what's going on with the team, you're not going to go to a rookie. He's trying to find out, what the meeting time is, where he's got to go to that meeting, meaning you want to deal with veterans. And Larry Fitzgerald talks on Thursdays. Patrick Peterson talks on Thursdays. So those guys are automatic. But if you're going in
and the quarterback on Wednesday.
And quarterback and coordinators on Thursday. But if you want to go to a guy on a Monday and they're coming off a disappointing loss, during locker availability, you go to these veteran guys because they have the authority, they know what's going on, and they're watching film like everyone else. So it's always good to have those guys in the locker room, not only for us, but from a standpoint that they're willing to take some of the bullets sometime.
And give you, the fans, some analysis, some in-depth as far as what's going on with the team. As far as Chandler Jones, again, he leads the team with 12 sacks, but he's been held without a sack in the past 3 games. And according to defensive coordinator Al Holcomb, he thinks he knows why.
I mean, that's a good question. I think that, people are turning the protection to him, paying a little bit more attention to him. He's getting chipped as well. And I think it's just a matter of emphasis for the opponent that, 55 is a guy on the radar, 55 is a guy that can wreck a football game. There's just been more of an area of focus on him, in my opinion, over the last 6 weeks or so. Well, we got to try to find ways to free him up from a protection standpoint, from a pressure standpoint, try to find ways to get him going, try to put him in advantageous positions where he can be matched up in a position where he can be one-on-one. And then, the plays will start to happen again for him.
If you're the opposing, offensive coordinator, you're going to take a look and go, where's he at when you break the huddle? And then you look at 21. And so teams are obviously gearing towards other players. David Emerson, even though he's got experience, you're going to get targeted. So maybe they move him around a little bit more. He doesn't have Marcus Golden, so when you got that 1-2 punch or package, all of a sudden who are you going to double? So maybe they should move him around. But I do think it was an adjustment for him early in the season when he was playing with his hand in the dirt, and then he moved with standing up, and I thought that gave him a little bit more leverage and pressure. But he's gone against some really good left tackles. Andrew Whitworth last week, Jake Matthews in Atlanta. I look at the 2 Niners games. He went against Joe Staley. They got a really good pair between Mike McClinchy, a first-round pick. So you take the best pass rushers in the league, and they're going against the best offensive linemen in football. But you like to see him finish strong because he's had an outstanding year. But we're going to look back at a few games this year where teams obviously were going away from him, and I think that's why you're seeing the lack of sacks in the last 3 games.
Well, the good news, historically, he's played very, very well against the Seahawks.
True.
8.5 sacks in his career. He had a sack earlier this season against Russell Wilson, so perhaps some more of that coming up on Sunday as we are getting started here on a Cards Cover 2, a Football Friday. We broadcast from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, of course, doing so in our Bose QC35s as we take a look now at Sunday's matchup in Seattle. The Seahawks 9-6. They have won 5 of their last 6, and last week beat the Chiefs, which is no short of a feat, but clinched the playoff spot last week. 7 of 9 years now they have reached the postseason under head coach Pete Carroll, who this week received a contract extension through 2021, so he's not going anywhere. And any thoughts of him retiring certainly go out the window with that extension. But here is Seattle after an 0-2 start once again, and all the headlines in the offseason with them were, well, they're going to take a step back. Didn't make the postseason a year ago. They were going to fall even further within the NFC West because of all the missing pieces defensively. But here they are, 1 win away from a double-digit campaign.
I never had that thought. I mean, I know people were burying, especially locally. I just think because, they've been on top, and now the Rams are. But, when you look locally, everyone kind of pokes fun at Pete Carroll. The energy he has, of course, I always mock him for chewing that gum on the sidelines, but you're not going to find a guy 66 years old that's in great shape like that. I didn't think we should bury them. Anytime you got Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, and you got to give them a ton of credit going out and get a new offensive line coach. They have a three-headed monster. They're the number one rushing team in football. And then they don't have those mouthpieces on defense, and guys are just playing, making plays. And it all starts with Bobby Wagner in the middle. He makes all the calls. He's a great player. So I actually believe whether they're a 5 seed, that means they go to Dallas. If they're a 6 seed, they got to go to Chicago. I would take Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson against Jason Garrett. I know that he doesn't play, and Dak Prescott. Now about the Bears, you got to deal with their defense. But I would take Russell Wilson in a big spot over Mitch Trubisky in a heartbeat.
It's certainly been fun, especially the wild card. But because of that seeding and just because they want to maintain some level of readiness, Coach Carroll said that they're not going to rest starters, even though a 5 or a 6 seed, it might not matter much. But they're treating Sunday as if it's week 5, week 3. Guys, you're going to see the household names on the field.
Who would you rather play, the Cowboys?
I would rather, because the other option, if it's not the Bears, it's the Rams. Because there's a possibility of the Bears moving into that 2 seed and sliding the Rams to a 3.
Because they're head-to-head.
Yeah, but just on paper and even venues. I mean, playing in Chicago or
probably,
in L.A.
Probably a night game because of the market and obviously the teams involved.
Yeah, I know. I would
and Jared Goff, small sample, he doesn't play well in cold weather.
And we saw that earlier with the Bears.
True.
So it's certainly something to pay attention to. But with respects to the Seahawks on Sunday, with them going full speed ahead, head coach Steve Wilks on what to expect on the Cardinals end of things in Seattle.
I think that's the difference, their commitment to running the ball. They're very successful doing it, number 1 in the league. Every time I talk about running the ball, we always talk about this as a new NFL. Everybody wants to, pass the football. I think running the football is good and when you're effective, so that's the difference. But they do a great job of running the ball. And I spoke to the defense this morning, they're first, we're last. So we got to do a great job of stopping them.
Yeah, no one runs the football better than the Seahawks, 158.5 rushing yards per game. The Cardinals allow just over 153, and we know what's happened the past couple of weeks and what the rush defense has done or not done, 215 and 269 in the past 2 weeks. But certainly it's a lot of Russell Wilson just because of his ability to get outside the pocket. But Chris Carson, a former 7th-round draft pick who has surpassed 1,000 yards rushing for the first time in his career behind an offensive line that has been, rebuilt, but certainly looks very strong. And you talk to either one of those players, Wilson or Carson, they'll credit the offensive line for their success to move the football on the ground.
Yeah, and this is the recipe when they went to back-to-back Super Bowls. That was beast mode. I mean, they, as I mentioned, since week 4, they're the best running team in football. And it was after that Cowboys game they kind of changed it because, I think Russell Wilson likes to put up numbers, and a lot of times he's in that MVP conversation towards the end of the year. I think he's a top 5 quarterback just based on his ability to extend plays with his legs. He's a smart quarterback. Yeah, he's been hit a lot again, and I don't think you're gonna prevent that just because, he either tries to extend plays or he tries to make plays in the pocket, and sometimes he can't see over the lineman. But, Mike Davis ran all over the Cardinals.
Yeah, it has not been good for the
Cardinals.
To me,
the biggest issue here is, besides what we've talked about all year, gap discipline, gap integrity, knowing your role, stay in your lane, tackling. You got to wrap up. You can't have one guy get there. I want to see 3 or 4 guys get there. Tackling is going to be an issue for this team. It's been an issue all year. Hopefully they can clean some of that things up, and you'll avoid those 5-yard runs that turn into 15 or 20-yard runs.
Falcons put up 215 rushing yards. The Rams, 269, numbers that don't sit well with team captain Corey Peters, and he's been very outspoken about it all season long, and he was again last week after the loss to the Rams.
If you were to zoom out on the season and assess issues that need to be corrected going forward, where would run defense rank?
I think it's number 1 from a defensive standpoint. You can't stop the run. You let somebody run for 200-some yards on you, good luck, especially offense as potent as the Rams. So that was one of our main goals coming into the game, was to stop their run game, try to make them one-dimensional. I don't think we did that at all. So, we just have to accept that complete failure, and that's on me. That's on everybody.
Peters, last week, post-game conversation with Paul Calvisi on the Arizona Cardinals radio network, and, you don't hear him talking. Well, he did bring up coaching once, but as far as it's up to the players to get the job done, and you talked about it, tackling, that's not coaching. That's players, wanting to or being in position to make the tackle, and I think that's what gets lost a lot of the times. Everyone wants to focus on the coaching, whether it's the head coach or the coordinators, but they're not on the field on game day.
Well,
and on the field of play, I should say.
Well, and again, I think football is, you could say, 70% scheme, 30% execution. It's just that guys have been out of their lanes. And look at C.J. Anderson last week. I mean, they pulled him off the street. Now he's been in the NFL. He was in Carolina earlier in the year. So if one guy's not in his gap, I mean, it's just frustrating from a standpoint of football is basically, and I don't want to simplify it, but it's about blocking and tackling. And that's two areas where they need to improve on.
Patrick Peterson brought up this very aspect earlier this week on Thursday, putting the onus on the players, and this was after he was asked about head coach Steve Wilks and all the talk about Wilks' future, and Peterson came out publicly very strongly in support of Wilks. There's been a lot of what Wilks calls, quote, outside noise, unquote, about his future and what may or may not happen after Sunday's game or even on Monday. But with regards to the struggles this season, Peterson believes it falls more on the players' shoulders rather than the coaches.
I honestly think Coach will be here next year. Obviously, it's been a tough season for us. We all love Coach, heck of a motivator. Just the way he's able to get guys going, for games, the messages that he sent across, and also just practice etiquette, just everything about Coach. He's a man's man, and I definitely hope those speculations are false. But at the end of the day, that's something that's out of my control. And but we're definitely planning, as players, we're planning to have Coach back next year.
Why do you think he'll be back? Why do you think he should be back?
Why do I think Coach should be back? Man, I mean, obviously the season is not, a result of what we all wanted. But at the end of the day, team success is also weighed on the coach's shoulders. But at the same time, players have to be able to execute the game plan and be able to go out there and put forward the effort to help us win ball games. Coach has been doing everything that he could to make sure that we're in a position to win and be in position to be successful. As men, like I said in the game. What was our last home game? Last road game, Atlanta. I told guys, Coach said, he has to do a better job of putting guys in position. And I had to tell Coach after that, me as a leader and as a captain, I'm tired of hearing Coach say that. Because at the end of the day, it's, as men, we have to look ourselves in the mirror and be able to step up to the challenge and be able to want to do better for the football team. You have to get, tired of getting your behind handed to you, and it starts with you. It starts with us. At the end of the day, Coach can put us in position, but we have to go out there and execute.
I know the fans don't want to hear this because it's been a long year, and they always think the grass is greener, and the organization is going to do what's best for them moving forward. I'm telling you, Steve Wilks has been consistent from day one. He has the respect of those players in the locker room. I know what you're going to say. Why didn't they play harder? Maybe they just didn't have the talent. Maybe some guys were playing out of position. But he is well respected in that locker room. And for us covering him, his demeanor didn't change. I'm sure behind closed doors he wasn't happy the way things were going because it's a result-oriented business based on results. But I'm telling you, the players in that locker room, they respect Coach Wilks.
And I'm sure they would love nothing more to end this season with the win in Seattle, where they've had all kinds of success at CenturyLink Field. You look at the last 3 seasons, 4 of the last 5, I realize different quarterback, different head coach, different coaching staff, but for whatever reason, this organization, this team plays very, very well in Seattle.
You know, you look at Russell Wilson's overall career record as a starter, and it's overwhelming. His record against the Cardinals, 7-5-1. And they usually win, 9 or 10 games every year, so that means 6 losses per season. He's probably has the worst record against the Cardinals than any other team he plays against. Now, I'm curious to see with the Rams and Niners because you'd have the same numbers there. Now, the other side of it is he's thrown 21 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions in those games, but 7-5-1 against the Redbirds.
And if you go back to 2013, because I was looking at the Cardinals game notes, the CenturyLink Field, the Seahawks have lost only 12 times since 2013 at CenturyLink Field. Cardinals have accounted for a third of those losses with 4, and that is why that even though what the records are, there is a sense of, hey, look, we've done it before. There's no reason we can't do it again.
It's one of those things throughout the records.
Yes. It's like like the rivalry game.
Yeah,
it doesn't
that's
matter.
a quick thing I thought of there. Yeah, I mean, it's so mind-boggling. Though they come here and play well. Now that one year they played on a Thursday night, and then the University of Washington played ASU, so they had a lot of fan base there. Hauschka and Catman missed field goals, so that was a 6-6 tie. And then the Cardinals play well up there, and they have one of the better home field advantages in football.
Yeah,
that's why they play the game.
Exactly, and it's something that sometimes you just can't explain or rationalize. You just enjoy it, and maybe that extends into this Sunday with the Cardinals picking up another win, at least for head coach Steve Wilks. That is something that they want to do, is make sure they end 2018 on a bright spot.
I think the biggest thing, Bombers, is we got to compete. You know, we got to finish with a sense of pride. I'm relying and leaning on our veteran leadership this week because we've won up there. These guys in that locker room, they know how to win up in the Northwest. So we're going to rely on that, have a very simple game plan where our guys can get aligned quickly because this is a real up-tempo kind of offense. And, you know, we just got to execute.
And as we've talked about repeatedly as far as with regards to Josh Rosen, and Byron Leftwich brought this up on Thursday, they want the young rookie to experience Seattle playing there, and regardless of what the weather may or may not be, but just that atmosphere and the 12th man, and so we can keep building that resume and taking notes and figuring out what is expected of an NFL quarterback to move forward in 2019.
Yeah, and again, if the game gets out of reach in the second half, I'm pulling them out. I mean, the main thing is if it's a score 0-0 to start, obviously, hopefully the Cardinals can score some points, build some confidence, and then defensively we'll see how they're able to shut the run game down, and we talked about the tackling part. But if it gets out of reach in the second half, I'm going to Mike Glennon. That's his job, to being a backup quarterback. It's not like you want to see anybody get hurt, but you got to protect your investment moving forward, and that's Josh Rosen.
2:25 is the kickoff from CenturyLink Field. That means 9:30 a.m. the pregame coverage begins on the Arizona Cardinals radio network. And if you need to know where to watch, listen, and follow the game, just go to azcardinals.com/Game Central. That's azcardinals.com/Game Central. As we continue here on this Football Friday from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, broadcasting our Bose QC35s, and the rivalry with the Seattle Seahawks certainly highlighted this week's edition of Fitz Friday, #Fitz Friday. Here's the best of Larry Fitzgerald's Q&A with the media.
Yeah, the most definitely after losing the Super Bowl, we went out there. Coach Wisenhunt's last year got beat 58-0. That was like second lowest point in my career. I felt, that was terrible. That was a really tough one. But then the next year to be able to go up there and win in that place after taking a loss like that, it was like one of my most favorite victories I've ever had too. So I've had some good experiences and some not so fun experiences as well.
Honorable mention to Drew Stanton dancing in 2015 at all.
Yeah, that was a fun game. Michael Floyd catching that fade ball on the left hand side. To get the game won. That was a great game. It was a great game.
Byron mentioned that the great players need football. They don't just want to play football; they need it. Has that been part of what's driven you for 15 years?
I mean, I've dedicated my life to it. You know, I've started playing tackle football at 6 years old, and on the 8-year-old team. And this time of the year, this is all I've done. And you know, you dedicate your life to something and put in so much time and effort. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't say I need it, but you know, I really enjoy it. You know, to be able to get out of bed every day. Nobody has to. I don't have to set an alarm clock. My feet hit the ground. I know it's time to go to work. I'm excited about it, and I understand. You know, this is something that you know, I've always wanted to do. So that's a blessing.
And again, who knows? This could be the last game for Fitz. Last week we talked about it being potentially the last home game for Larry Fitzgerald. And with that in mind, the Cardinals broadcasting department walks you through what may, and again we stress may, be the final time we see number 11 at State Farm Stadium.
The roof is open as the Cardinals wrap up the home portion of the 2018 regular season schedule. Is this it for Larry Fitzgerald?
One thing that I do know about Larry Fitzgerald, he's going to come out here, he's going to be prepared, and he's going to give everything he's got.
At wide receiver from Pittsburgh, number 11, Larry Fitzgerald.
Fitz running onto the field no differently than he has done every game for the last 15 years, but this could be his final game at State Farm Stadium. Back to throw goes Rosen, pumps, fires left, Fitz with the catch, spun down at the 40. Larry Fitzgerald has just broken Jerry Rice's record. Most consecutive games with a catch with a single franchise, 226 games in a row in which Larry Fitzgerald has caught a football. I'd say the goal today was to feature Larry Fitzgerald in what could be his final home game. Just a guess.
Yeah, they got in the huddle. They basically said, all right, get the ball to Larry on two, ready, break.
The Cardinals trail 14-3 with 9:47 to go in the half. A standing ovation for Larry Fitzgerald. They just showed the touchdown in the Super Bowl.
It's a little uncomfortable, to be honest with you. Everything I've done in my life is in the context of a team setting, and it's a little uncomfortable to be singled out. You know, there's 11 guys with me, and I wouldn't be able to do my job without, you know, every single guy doing it.
Here's going to be a double pass. Fitz catches it. He's going to throw it deep, far side. He's got a man. It's Johnson, caught. Touchdown. If this is a send-off to Fitz, what a way to go out. Larry Fitzgerald with a touchdown pass brings the house down.
Larry Mariscal. Bombazo de 32 yardas.
This town loves Larry, and he's an unbelievable player. I think the fan base is sort of starving for a couple positives, and that was a really, really fun one.
Six catches, 53 yards, 226 straight games with a reception, the most ever by a player with one franchise. And now Larry waving to the fans as he runs off the field per usual.
Now, for those that are listening to the podcast, the piece ends with the following quote: "May there be more chapters in this legend." And on Sunday, it'll be the 234th career game for Fitz, which would tie the most in Cardinals franchise history. And it just occurred to me, MJ, that we're all hoping that there's at least one more season, maybe two. I'd be a stretch to think three, but if this is it, then okay, that's then we've all done our potential last home game, last time meeting the media on a Thursday, last road game. But if he does come back, are we doing all this all over again?
Yeah.
The final 2-3 weeks of the season, go, hey, are you under contract? You're not under contract. What are you going to do in 2020?
Yeah, I mean,
and I'd be fine with that
as long as he wants to play. Again, he loves playing on Sundays. He doesn't mind the grind during the week, maybe some of the off-season workouts. I mean, he knows when he goes to training camp, it's grind mode and put the blinders on and try to get to the regular season. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be his last game in 2018, but I wouldn't rule it out in 2019. Now, there's obviously factors involved. He's going to take some time off, but I still think he can play at a high level, and we all know what he means to this franchise, not only in this building, but also in this community.
I don't think there's any question that he still has enough in the tank to be not just a wide receiver, but a very, very good wide receiver.
And he's got 11.5 million reasons to return.
Yeah, that's that would kind of push me over the edge to return, but that's just me. I don't have that. I don't have that hanging over my head.
No,
but,
we don't have that kind of leverage.
No.
And again, he doesn't have an agent. He passed away a few years ago. The late Eugene Parker, one of the best agents in football. He'll deal strictly with the ownership, meaning Michael Bidwell and then Steve Keim. So that conversation shouldn't take very long if he chooses to come back, which I think he will.
It is a Football Friday here on Cards Cover 2, coming to you from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center as we broadcast in our Bose QC35s. Before we let the Bird Gang sound off here on a Football Friday, how about we once again open the Big Red Vaults, and today we flash back to 2016, Week 15 at Seattle.
4 minutes to go in the half, 7-0 Cardinals. Shotgun snap to Palmer, 5-man rush. Palmer steps up, throws deep, going middle of the field for Nelson. It's caught at the 30, at the 20, the 10, 5, touchdown! An 80-yard touchdown pass, the biggest play of the year for the Cardinals offense on a deep ball thrown by Carson Palmer.
Won that game 34-31 as Brandon Natus, the Cardinals manager of social media, joins us here on Cards Cover 2 to find out what the Bird Gang is sounding off here on this final Football Friday of 2018.
So it took 17 weeks, but we finally got on the same memo as far as
colors.
So
very nice.
All red. Glad we texted each other this morning to work on that. We'll start here with
we didn't, by the way, but that's okay.
I was going to say that was our wake-up call.
We'll start here with Instagram because those are we'll just switch it up this week. So first question, you talked a little bit about it. Percentage that Larry continues next season. What do you got?
It's more than 50-50 for me personally. I'll go 65%.
I don't like percentages, but people ask the questions. I'll try to answer. I would say 99.9, but I'm not making that decision, so I'm going to go 90%.
Wow, that's a high percentage there, MJ. You're putting yourself out there.
It does seem like the percentage went up as the season went on, like at least the last couple of weeks. I don't know why, but speaking of playing, this fan wants to know: will DJ Swearinger play Sunday? Do you think that will happen or not?
I hope it does. Just to see him and what his energy, how his play would affect everyone else on that defense. Now, you don't want to throw him out there if he's not comfortable with what he's being asked to do defensively, if terminology or scheme or whatever you want to call it. But if he's ready, he's certainly athletic enough and in shape. I certainly would love to see him out there.
Yeah, I think when we watch him next year, you're going to see that he brings a lot of energy, passion. He's got some swag. I want to see him lay some lumber, and I think that's contagious. But we can also see him on special teams because we know if you're not a starter, if you're going to earn a roster spot on game day, which is 46 men, you're going to have to play on a little teams. And I talked to him about it, and he's open to doing whatever they ask him.
And speaking of maybe not this game, but moving forward, he's under contract for next year. How do you think he fits into this defense next year?
I think he slides in right behind Budda Baker. And you got Antoine Bethea. They're all under contract, but for me, he's right there on the same level, and maybe just based off a resume, even better than a Budda Baker.
Well, I'll say this. He's a plug-and-play guy. I don't think they're going to retain Trey Boston. He's a free agent. Curious to see what kind of market's out there for him. He's under contract. I would think between Budda playing the slot corner and Bethea still playing at a high level, even though he's getting a little bit older, That will be your that will be your 3 starting safeties, and I like that on paper because they all do a little bit differently. Obviously, Bethea plays more center field. You see a guy like Swearinger taking over for Boston, and then Buderbaker plays the slot. So I like that position as a whole. You still like to add another body or two.
Now, will he get the number 36 is also up for debate.
We'll add that to the list of questions we have for the offseason.
We'll switch over to Twitter now. So we'll ask, this question was, what's the root cause for the 2018 season? Obviously, didn't meet expectations for a lot of people. Coaching, talent, injury, learning curve. Can this be changed for a better 2019? So just from each of you, what is one root cause, if you had to pick one, for the season that is 2018?
Well, I would say all the above. I mean, I think it's coaching. I think it's players. I think it's lack of execution, lack of depth at certain positions, lack of wide receivers dropping passes. So, yeah, that's the plan, is to get all this kind of figured out. And listen, I only can say this out loud. They're not going to be as bad as they were this year. They're hoping for a turnaround, whether it's worst to first. I mean, we see the Bears do it, Jacksonville, Philadelphia a couple of years ago. But this team needs to be more competitive. They got to get off to a good start. They got to win home games, and then we'll see where they are in the month of December. But they got to get David Johnson like he was back in 2016. They got to get protection for Rosen. So I think there's enough blame to go around where everyone would put their hand up and go, I'm part of it. And I was part of the solution, and I was also part of the disappointment.
And that's fair, and I would agree with you. But if you're going to put one ahead of the other, because I think they're all somewhat equal, I would put injuries in there up above anything else, just because that affects so much. Not only you lose the player, but then the trickle down, someone who may not be ready have to go in.
Very true.
Or just someone who doesn't have the experience. And then obviously, if you're not starting at the beginning of the season, there's a reason you're not good enough yet. Yeah. And all of a sudden you're thrust into that position.
He's a topper.
We have one final question here from our friend Cardinals31, David Johnson's burner account. This time of year,
he's gonna hashtag that.
By the way,
if we had rankings,
does David Johnson know that he has a burner account?
We haven't talked to him about this yet. I think he's worried about other stuff.
That's one of those off-season questions.
At this time of year,
we have a lot of those, don't
we? Do.
At this time of year, lots of people make resolutions. If you had to come up with 3 resolutions for 2019 for the Cardinals, what would they be? So let's get to each of your 3 resolutions.
What are your 3?
Personally, or for the Cardinals?
No, the Cardinals. This is what we're talking about.
Ooh, you're putting me on the spot here. 3 resolutions.
You want us to answer first?
You answer first, and I'll think about my answer.
In no particular order. All right, and in no particular order. Better run defense. Scoring. They've only scored 20 points 3 times this season, and Larry Fitzgerald returns in 2019.
Okay, See, I'm going to put that on the back burner because I'm not confident, but I just feel.
You certainly sound very confident.
I feel good about it. Definitely got to get protection and a running game for Josh Rosen. That's number 1. This whole entire offseason is about developing Josh Rosen. Run defense. You have to stop the run. I mean, teams aren't balanced totally, but if you stop the run, then you can maybe get some more interception sacks. And the other thing is that this team has to come together with chemistry, okay? And that will be decided in the offseason. So, again, it's really about blocking and tackling, but this entire offseason is about getting weapons and getting protection and get that running game going with Josh Rosen.
Health.
All right, I have my 3.
Health is good.
Health. I have my 3.
After we gave all the
examples. No,
Brandon
I'll
wants
go with different ones.
Brandon wants like 3 things to go viral. I get that. Okay.
All right, so my 3, hit on your first round pick. Have someone that could come in, make an impact right away. Okay. 2, more explosive plays on offense. Well, which
tough
includes
to do
more
when
playmakers.
a guy's running for his life.
Yeah.
But
no, I'm not saying
we're looking for head.
Yeah, you have to have time, but so all that comes. 3rd, play with more swagger. I think having DJ Swearinger will help with that. But I think
Marcus Golden
being out,
Buderbaker,
Jermaine missing some time. Who knows who will be around next year or whatever with contracts. Not to say they didn't play with swagger this year, but I think adding a guy like DJ Swearinger not only helps from his abilities on the field, but kind of playing with that fire that you want to see, some guys play with, and I think having that will certainly help.
Good job, Brandon.
You like those three? Are those good? Is that
You can't go anywhere. What's the uniform combo?
white on white this week? White on white. So all iced out to close the season.
Okay, very well done.
Anything else?
Anything else? You got breaking news.
Do you have
Last
any
week you
news?
had all kinds of breaking news last week. Nothing?
David Johnson's, they were having their second baby. That was breaking news.
last week. I don't know if anyone else is having any kids or anything like that. So, I got you my three. My three ones are different. You got any other questions for me, Mike?
I do.
What do you got?
Okay, you've worked in Jacksonville.
Yes.
You're here now.
Yes.
What is your best? Now you're Kansas City.
I grew up at Yeah.
So we'll take them out of the equation.
Okay.
What is one of the better facilities you like to visit venue-wise? Just atmosphere.
Ooh. Okay. So my three criteria.
Okay.
For best stadiums, for those of you that care, are what is your reception like when I'm on my phone trying to Wi-Fi? Can I text? Can I make calls really well? How quickly can I get from the press box to the field? Very crucial.
We knew this was coming. We heard about the story.
And number 3 is, what is your press box food like? So I don't know. I really liked Atlanta. I like San Francisco. I like Minnesota.
So
definitely
you got a
Atlanta,
chance to see some of the newer venues.
Atlanta and Minnesota have some sort of have some similarities. So I like both of those. I will say there's something special about Seattle. It's not that it crushes it in all 3 of those categories, but just kind of like Arrowhead, kind of like Lambeau.
Yeah.
There's just something special that's, you can't, the tradition, the fans, they're just a really special place to be for game days. And even that's when if you talk to a lot of other people that work here and players, they'll tell you that, Seattle it's just special. There's something about it.
They like playing in Seattle.
Just the atmosphere, the vibe. So I hope that we continue playing the last game in Seattle, because I like the cold, rainy, final game of the season there.
I'd rather have a home game to end the season.
Yeah, I mean that.
So week 16 instead of week 17.
No, week 17 against Seahawks, Niners, or Rams.
When was the last time they had a home game to end the season? Was it 2015? Because I know 2016, the last game was on the road against the Rams. 2017 was at Seattle, and this year at Seattle.
Maybe you got to go back to that 10-6 or 11-5 season under Arians.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to look that up. You can look that up.
Maybe
for
2015.
We got plenty of time for that stuff in the off season here.
You could go look up the vault.
I'm not going to put you on the spot, but I like the schedule next year.
Favors well, so I like the East, a lot of East Coast games, so I could see my friends and family.
And we got Pittsburgh and Cleveland coming in.
Again, I love it how you always turn this around.
It's always
all
about
you. Very well.
I actually asked them to make the opponents so that I could see family.
And uniform update for those curious: white on white.
White on white.
Very well. Appreciate it, Brandon. And,
Thank you, Brandon.
Thanks for everyone here. Allowing the Bird Gang sound off using the hashtag CardsCovered2. Hashtag CardsCovered2. We do that at the end of every show here on Cards Covered 2. And with that, we say thank you to those behind the scenes. Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, Javier Rodriguez, and, of course, Brandon Natus as well. For my partner, Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Riolu. As we leave you here for one final time on a Football Friday, time to get you hyped up. It's Week 17, the regular season finale at Seattle.
Seattle's CenturyLink Field has been the site of many memorable Cardinals victories in recent years.
It's caught at the 30, at the 20, the 10, 5, touchdown!
Some of those contests were a battle for NFC West supremacy. Others didn't have as much on the line, but every one of them meant something. Despite the disappointment of 2018, despite the records, Sunday will mean something to each and every player who takes the field. Because football is about resilience, fight, playing until the final whistle. Seahawks, Cardinals, the season finale, Sunday.